Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with the 31 days of gangster films and police films from the year 1970 to the present day. And it is my hope that this can afford us, you and me, my dear friends, with the opportunity to be able to speak about as many films as possible over the course of these 31 days in the context of these exciting, electrifying, and supremely entertaining genres of cinema entertainment, those being the gangster film genre and the police film genre, respectively. And I must say that we are almost at the end of the 31 days. It has been for me such a great honor and joy and privilege to have been able to take this journey along with you, my dear friends. And while we are not quite at the end, we are almost there. But let me say that it has been so fun and so thrilling. And I have you to thank for that, my dear friends. Thank you so much for coming along and joining me for this particular journey. It's been so exciting for me. And I have you to thank for that, my dear friends. And to continue on, we are almost finished, but not quite finished, because we have a number of discussions left to make, including that for today, and specifically for this video, which is, I'd like to focus in on the gangster film element, the gangster film genre. And I'd like to focus in on a work, or perhaps a series of work, or perhaps, to be even more specific, a whole body of work that has so many films that make up this body of work. And these films can be divided into various components or subcomponents or series within this whole series. This is, in many ways, one of the landmark achievements in gangster genre cinema. This can be said also to be one of the landmark achievements of 20th century Japanese cinema. This can be said also to be one of the great landmark, hallmark achievements of Japanese cinema writ large. Occasionally, I might get the question from a viewer or a friend asking me what I consider to be among my favorite Japanese films of all time. It's a very difficult question for me to answer, but if I were to endeavor to make an answer, I could say with a fair degree of certainty that these films would emerge at the near top of that list. These films are so vital and so important to me, and they're so invigorating and shocking and violent and filled with life and death and webs of conspiracy and conspiracy upon conspiracy and treachery and deceit and lies, as well as a type of tableau or a journey person's walkthrough of post-war Japan, from the detonation of the atom bombs all the way up through certain points of 20th century post-war Japan, and indeed beyond. So there is so much at stake here. There's so much at play here, as well as being premier examples of the Japanese crime film, the gangster film, the Yakuza eiga, and all that implies. And this is due in large part to the filmmakers that are involved. If we are to consider the main components of the series films, I think we could focus in on one filmmaker in particular, and that filmmaker is Kinji Fukasaku. And I'm speaking of the works that, as I say, can be divided up into components. Perhaps the main or primary component, or what is considered to be the premier component of such series or body of work, stems from the years 1973 to 1974. And again, the filmmaker director is Kinji Fukasaku. And I'm speaking of these works right here. And in Japanese, it is Jingi Naki Tatakai, or as it's often referred to in English, battles without honor and humanity. Now, the films that are considered to be part of this series, known generally as Battles Without Honor and Humanity, they are plentiful. There are many, and indeed, this series or body of work, which is referred to generally as the Jingi Naki Tatakai series, or Battles Without Honor and Humanity series, they can be divided up into various components or subcomponents. So the first of such subcomponents is the series of work, this body of work that stems from 1973 to 1974. So that's the first maybe component. And then another component can be said to be a series of films, 3 films, from the years 1974 to 75 and then to 76. And then we have a series of films that came after that that can be said to be a part of the series, but also they're standalone as well. So from 1979, and then one from 2000, and one from 2003. But first let's focus on these films that are in this sweep of films, 5 films that are ranging from 1973 to 1974. And again, this is the Jingi Naki Tatakai series. And so the first of such films is this film, which is Jingi Naki Tatakai, or Battles Without Honor and Humanity. So that's the first film. And then we have the next film, which is Jingi Naki Tatakai, Hiroshima Shito Hen, or Battles Without Honor and Humanity, Hiroshima Death Match. And then we have the next film, which is also Jingi Naki Tatakai, Dairi Senso, or Battles Without Honor and Humanity, Proxy War. And then we have the fourth film, which is Jingi Naki Tatakai, Choujo Sakusen, or as it might be known in English, Battles Without Honor and Humanity, Police Tactics. And then last but not least, in this cycle of 5 films, Jingi Naki Tatakai, Kanketsu Hen, or here in English, Battles Without Honor and Humanity, Final Episode. So these are the 5 films in this 5-film cycle, again from Kinji Fukasaku and Company, and it stars a whole range. It's a who's who. It is of premier performers and actors from Japanese cinema. So, for example, we have Akira Kobayashi, or Joe Shishido, or Shinichi Chiba, or Nobuo Kaneko, and Kunie Tanaka, and others. And, of course, starring the great Bunta Sugawara. So Sugawara Bunta stars in these cycle of films, the Battles Without Honor and Humanity Yakuza film series. And he is one of the great legends of Japanese cinema, Sugawara Bunta. And so we have the great figure, the great cinema icon, Sugawara Bunta, in these cycle of films, and indeed some others which we'll talk about momentarily. So Battles Without Honor and Humanity. This is a cycle of films that is about the Yakuza. This is about the Yakuza in this part of Japan, focusing primarily around the Hiroshima area. And we have so many levels, so many cross currents of betrayal and rivalry and factional warfare, turf warfare, and a type of machismo battles and controversies and alliances and friendships that are tested and the like. And it all is against the backdrop of this post-war Japan era. Again, one of the key fundamental aspects of these films, Battles Without Honor and Humanity, there are many fundamental aspects, but one of which being the concept of maybe the growth, or maybe the development or evolution or devolution, if you will, of a type of criminal underbelly or underworld society that could be said to be paralleling the development of Japan during the post-war era, immediately following the aftermath of the end of the war. And so we have all these historical currents that are present at the very get-go from this series, and it sets off a whole chain reaction of events and rivalries and connections that lead to the growth of this world, or the development of this underworld of Yakuza crime syndicate organizational hell. And I use the word hell because indeed there is so much hellish action on display here. There is a sense of pride gone awry. There is also a sense of rivalry, twisted upon rivalry, and it adds this a swirl of confusion of a multitude of actors and participants, key players in various factions that make up this whole world of the Japanese Yakuza on display in Fukasaku's hands here in the Battle Without Honor and Humanity series, the cycle of 5 films. My goodness, what a bravura display of this type of storytelling is going. There are so many stories that seem to be exploding before our very eyes. This type of kinetic energy, the bursting forth of these larger-than-life figures who seem to appear and then maybe for some disappear due to some flash of blood and violence and a clash and death and confrontation. Or maybe there might be some, and indeed a lot perhaps, that linger and stay on and become part of the background, recede into the background, or emerge into the foreground. This type of ebb and flow of the huge lattice networking of a multitude of participants that are part of this whole landscape of the Japanese Yakuza in this brilliant bravura and eye-catching display of violence, and also a type of diplomacy, and also a type of testing of machismo, manhood, and also there is the idea of authority and power, and also there's the idea of loyalty and friendship and betrayal. It's all here in large, healthy, heaping doses of cinema entertainment at its grandest, at its finest. And Fukasaku and company are doing their darndest to entertain and to provide also this cheeky, this very type of subversive and utterly in-your-face entertaining cycle of films for all to see, all to witness. And it is so grand too because it has also a sense of grittiness about it. There is of course the splash of color, the splash of red, the splash of violence, the splash of indeed emotional fireworks, heated displays of passion and anarchy set against the backdrop of these Yakuza stories. It's also given this feeling of almost a gritty cinema reportage because we know or we understand that these are events that seem to be feeding off of actual reported events of the Japanese Yakuza during the post-war era. And so we have this eerie mirroring, this uneasy alliance between what is real or what we understand could be real, taken from the headlines of actual reporting, and this type of cinema quasi-reportage style that is part of the almost guerrilla type of filmmaking tactics that are part of the Fukasaku aesthetic in a brilliant display of cinema energy and verve and panache, as well as a type of rugged style that serves the stories oh so well. And my goodness, these stories that are part of the whole landscape of the films Battles Without Honor and Humanity, and leading through all these films, Hiroshima Deathmatch and Proxy War and Police Tactics, and then Final Episode, and all the way through we have various characters that recede or disappear. We have actors that appear again and again. Sometimes they're in different roles. They sometimes appear and then disappear. There are these rivalries that are matched upon rivalries. There are allegiances that then are made even more murky and unclear because it's the idea of my the enemy of my enemy is my friend, or is it? And that kind of double cross or triple cross that is part of the whole, as I say, the complex web of factional rivalry and allies. And as I say, a who's who of this type of grand gesture of Japanese cinema, with all these great performances on the floor, giving us they're all giving us this almost full-throated force of nature every single time. And I must say that I cannot emphasize enough just how iconic Sugawara Bunta Sugawara is as the character of Hirono, and what it is he brings. There is a charm, there is a type of almost a boyish charm about him. There is also a sense of a earnestness, a ruggedness. There's also a deadly, deadly veneer. There's a deadly sheen that he also brings, an aggressive touch, not just touch, an aggressive force, if you will. I use the phrase force of nature. Indeed, Sugawara is, I think, due in large part to his iconic status, especially now, cemented throughout Japanese cinema history. He brings so much of the charisma and danger and threat and menace and uncertainty and also promise that these stories bring, these Yakuza stories bring, again, set against the backdrop of Japanese history. My goodness, what a supreme example of Japanese cinema these films are. The Battles Without Honor and Humanity series. This is one of the greats. And again, if someone asked me, what are some films from Japanese cinema that I think people should watch? These films, Battles Without Honor and Humanity, would be on that list for sure. They are violent, they are tough, they are confusing, so they aren't for everyone, but they are and they remain premier examples of the Yakuza film, and indeed premier examples of the works of Kasaku, and also premier examples of Japanese cinema overall. These are truly one of a kind works, and they not to be missed. So these are the Battles Without Honor and Humanity films, which are from the 1973-1974 period. And then I want to continue on with another cycle of films which are also understood to be part of the Battles Without Honor and Humanity series. And they are films which are known as new Battles Without Honor and Humanity. And these are films that emerged, as I mentioned earlier, from 1974, 1975, and 1976. And we have also the filmmaker Kinji Fukasaku at the helm, and we also have the great actor Sugawara also playing different roles from the role that he played in the earlier 5 films. And indeed, among these 3 films in this new series, we have different roles, different stories, sort of independent stories that have type of thematic linkages, but aren't necessarily, strictly speaking, sequels in the strictest sense of that term. Although there is a spiritual or thematic, as I say, a quality of the connection between and among these films, and also as they exist in terms of the thematic or spiritual connections with the earlier cycle of 5 films, Battles Without Honor and Humanity. So we have these 3 works from 74, 75, and 76. And so the first one is called here, which is known in English as New Battles Without Honor and Humanity, or this is known in Japanese as Shin Jingi Naki Tatakai. And then the next film in the series is The Boss's Head, or as it's known in Japanese, Shin Jingi Naki Tatakai, Kumicho no Kubi. And then the third film is this one right here. In Japanese, this is Shin Jingi Naki Tatakai, Kumicho Saigo no Hi, or Last Days of the Boss. Now, these films have a type of thematic and spiritual similarity with the earlier cycle of 5 films, but there are a number of very interesting differences. There are differences in, say, the temperature of the stories. There are various twists, and indeed some quite crucially disturbing twists in terms of the saga, of the tales that are being told. And there are, while at the same time presenting these rough and tumble, these very cruel world aesthetics, and the raw energy and excitement and adrenaline rush of the Yakuza film entertainment, once again in the hands of Fukasaku and company. And so we have these great works on display here, again, for all to see. So here's yet another related yet not related series of films under the new Battles Without Honor and Humanity banner. So once again, you have the cycle of 5 films, Battles Without Honor and Humanity. And now we have a new cycle of 3 films, new Battles Without Honor and Humanity. Before I go, I should make mention of the great music and score. This is one of the classic scores of Japanese cinema. When we speak of Battles Without Honor and Humanity, it has a stinger of a musical motif that is so iconic in Japanese cinema. And we must make mention of Toshiaki Tsushima, the music of Tsushima, and that brilliant theme and the brilliant music from these series of films. And so this is something to be celebrated. So once again, we have now separate, thematically similar yet distinct components within this overall banner of the Battles Without Honor and Humanity series. But that is not all, because then we have yet another similar type of situation of similar yet different, standalone yet also falling within the banner of the Battles Without Honor and Humanity series. And this is from 1979, and this is known as Sonogono Jingi Naki Tatakai, or as it's oftentimes referred to in English, aftermath of Battles Without Honor and Humanity. And this is from 1979. This is from a director who is Eiichi Kudo, and it has a really interesting cast, including Jinpachi Nezu and Mieko Harada and others. And so here is another example, again, similar yet different in terms of style and theme and substance. Again, individuals standing alone on the one hand, yet having thematic similarities, and also falling under the umbrella of Battles Without Honor and Humanity, this time from 1979. Now, I am not sure what the status is of this particular film in the context of, say, releases outside of Japan. This happens to be my Japanese Blu-ray. It doesn't have any English language subtitles or anything of that sort, unfortunately, for those who might be interested to purchase it. Again, this is my Japanese Blu-ray, but it is also worth it. It is another great example of the developing style of the Yakuza film now into the end of the 1970s. But that's not all with regard to the Yakuza film series, Battles Without Honor and Humanity. Although there might not necessarily be some direct sequel continuity, there are, of course, a sense of a type of spiritual or thematic connection, maybe a type of thematic or spiritual remake connection status that can occur with this next film that I'm going to mention. And this is from the year 2000. And this is from the director Junji Sakamoto. And this is also called Shin Jingi Naki Tatakai, or as it could be translated into English, New Battles Without Honor and Humanity, this time from the year 2000. So in that way, it is several years, many years after the first films from Fukasaku. Here we have a different director, and here we have different people that are featured here. Now, the two main actors here are Tomoyasu Hotei and Etsushi Toyokawa. And so here we have another tale of Yakuza and friendship and betrayal and turf war and the like, and going up the ranks of the criminal syndicate power structure, etc., and how this might test the waters and test the actual friendships that have been forged over years since childhood. It's another very captivating, excellent example of this time a modern day Yakuza tale. Now, this film, again, I'm not sure about its status of release outside of Japan. This happens to be my Japanese DVD release, physical media release, and it is, but it's one of my favorites, and it might be also known to a number of people because of its music. Tomoyasu Hotei's music here is so iconic. And in fact, I think it has also gained a lot of attention. The music has, by virtue of its inclusion in, for example, the Quentin Tarantino work Kill Bill. And especially, I think it's the first part of the Kill Bill saga, and also the trailer that's associated with that first part of the Kill Bill saga. It has a very electrifying guitar riff theme to it, and that theme is from Hotei's work here, who is also one of the featured actors in this film, Shin Jingi Naki Tatakai, so New Battles Without Honor and Humanity from the year 2000. This is also an electrifying one, well worth it if you're able to find a version of it for your own home viewing. So that's the one. And then we continue on with this type of series or extension series, which is a film from 2003, which is also Shin Jingi Naki Tatakai Bosatsu. And the word bosatsu can be translated into English as murder. So this could be translated into English as New Battles Without Honor and Humanity Murder. Again, from 2003. And this time the director is Hajime Hashimoto. And it stars Katsunori Takahashi and Ken Watanabe and others. And here's yet another example of the modern take on the Yakuza film and betrayal, honor, loyalty, and all that implies in the context of the modern day Japanese gangster film. Here's another very exciting, gritty example of that, again from 2003. Also officially under the umbrella of the Battles Without Honor and Humanity series, although one can say that it has its own unique stance and character and flair about it. So here we have yet another example of the saga of the Battles Without Honor and Humanity films. But once again, it is a wide expanse, it is sprawling, it is epic, but they're also made up of maybe disparate pieces, disparate elements, or disparate subcomponents. Even within those subcomponents, there might be, whilst there might be arguably some spiritual connectivity, there isn't necessarily a type of sequel relationship that exists between and among them, at least not for everything. Although, when we go back to the primary component of the series, namely the Battles Without Honor and Humanity series from 1973-1974, as wide expansive as this is, and as epic a scope it is, and we have many different, say, actors appearing in different roles, and that might cause yet further issues of, say, a questioning of continuity, etc., etc. There is still a type of sequel status that is cemented with this cycle of 5 films. And so I think for a lot of people, this is the place to go. As I say, there's a wide umbrella, a wide scope of films under the Battles Without Honor and Humanity name and label. And each, I think, is worth visiting if you are able to, under the new banner or the aftermath banner, etc. But whatever the case may be, my friends, we have the Fukusaku works from 1973, 1974 that stand the test of time. Once again, these are among the greatest films, not just of Japanese gangster film genre, not just of 1970s Japanese cinema, but of Japanese cinema period. These are highly celebrated. They are highly celebrated critically among Japanese critical circles, and they are highly celebrated among fans of the genre. They are highly celebrated among the fans of Fukasaku's work, and also, as I say, there are who's who of Japanese film stars, as well as capturing the essence in this gritty cinema reportage nature, the very essence of what makes a Yakuza film, or a series of Yakuza films, the Yakuza films that they are. These are genre-defining films that are textbook examples of what a Yakuza film is, as well as brilliant examples of the works of Fukusaku, as well as brilliant examples of the growing evolution of Japanese cinema during this post-war era, not just in the context of the story, but also outside of the film itself, in the context of when and where these films are being made. There is so much going on within these works. These are defining moments of Japanese cinema. I cannot stress that enough. I cannot stress enough just how important these films are in a lot of respects, in terms of the historical sweep and also the entertainment value. And my goodness, when it all comes down to it, it comes down to how effective these are as works of cinema entertainment. And gosh, they are so fun. They are so shocking. They are so enthralling and filled with a type of energy that is legendary. Absolutely legendary. These are the works that are under this banner, Jingi Naki Tatakai, or as they may be known in English, Battles Without Honor and Humanity. Okay, my dear friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. I very, very much appreciate it. Stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.